Hey guys,
Hey, I'm April.
I'm Tommy.
Just little T and A,
No innuendo on that though, right?
maybe.
Maybe a little innuendo, just a little. So why do we want to start a podcast?
So we both have some really cool experiences with competing and doing it in a later age stage, where a lot of people start it when they're younger. We've been doing it at an older spot. We've both been, I'd say, pretty successful, don't you think?
Well, one of us really a whole lot successful, and the other one kind of successful. So let's start there. Let's tell them about our journey and just kind of how we got to where we're at, so that they know who we are.
Okay. So, what got you into bodybuilding?
So first off, I think this being a show for masters competitors, it's kind of important to tell where I came from and where I started. So one of the things that was when I was really young, my dad had bodybuilding magazines, and they were stacked up in his closet, and so I would go in there and I would thumb through it, and I would
Did your dad bodybuild?
no. But
So why did he have bodybuilding
I mean,
magazines?
why do girls have Cosmopolitan? Because they like to read it. It's not that they are who those girls say they are.
It's just funny.
It was funny, but so I was amazed by the physiques in these magazines, because I would look at it and it would be Ronnie Coleman and Lee Priest and Ronnie Robinson and all these old school bodybuilders.
I'm low key jealous that you got to look at that. Like, I grew up and my dad had computer programming books with no cool pictures.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. Computer programming wasn't my thing. So, but he had all of these cool magazines, and so I would flip through the magazines, and I was like, "That's who I want to look like." And back then, I grew up in the '80s, and so the superheroes were Rocky, Rambo, and Commando. I know, right? I know. Rocky and Rambo and Schwarzenegger, Commando, Predator, Terminator, Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And so it was all. It was like pop culture was flooded with
Super athletes. Yeah.
the best bodies of the best. And so I looked at that and I was like, that's who I want to be. That's what I want to be like. And so he did take me to a gym. We live in Memphis, and so there's a gym. Used to be here. It's called French Riviera. It's not here anymore, but it was a old school body.
It sounds fancy.
It sounds it, but it wasn't. It was a real dump. And so, but it was an old school like bodybuilding gym. So when you'd go in there, it would our lights went off. When did our lights go off? I don't know. Did they unplug or something?
Mm-mm.
Technical difficulties when you're working on a shoestring budget. She'll get it fixed. But so yeah, obviously we're not in a podcast studio. So one of the things that drew me to this was I would go in there, and there were these older gentlemen who were just they looked the part. They looked like Rocky. They looked like Rambo. They looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so to me, the Masters competitors were they were. I liken it to somebody who's in the medical, who's been to high school. Okay, so you graduate college. That's awesome. That's cool, but it's college. There's a difference between graduating college and then graduating with a master's degree and then graduating with a PhD. And to me, these older gentlemen had graduated with and we got lights back. Cool. Hey, thank you, baby. Looks amazing. Well,
Hey,
I don't, but
well,
it looks better.
thank you. Fun fact, I'm the technical person here.
For sure. So when it was be like the difference in having a high school diploma versus a master's degree. These older gentlemen, they had a master's degree in bodybuilding and weightlifting, and so I just thought that was so cool that they were, still going after it 30, 40 years after they started.
How old
Oh, probably like my age now, mid 40s, something like that.
Yeah.
But to me, it's so impressive because they were, they were older, but they still looked amazing.
So when you have kids that come up to you, like younger kids,
yeah,
how does that make you feel? Does it
it's a little nostalgic.
Does it make you feel like you've achieved what you dreamed of when you were a kid?
A little bit, just because.
Because now you are inspiring like a bunch of young people that see you at the gym, even if they don't talk to you. You probably don't even realize it, but you inspire a ton of the younger generation. Like, wow.
Yeah, so it's a cool feeling just because I've always wanted to try to have an air of approachability, not to be a butthead or
Yeah, you're
a
very
jackass.
approachable. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and I have that because of the men that invested in my life, and my first workout partner ever was a police officer here in town, and he just kind of took me under his wing and showed me how to do certain exercises, how to eat more properly, and I got away from that, but it built a foundation when I was a kid that I could follow as I grew into adulthood, and I learned more about how to work out and how to bodybuild and all that stuff. So yeah, it was it created. So I've always looked up to masters competitors, and that's kind of now that we are masters competitors, it's just it is a little bit, you look back at your childhood and you look at what you overcame and went through. So I think with that, so that's where my story started. I got married in my young 20s. I had, lifted weights from the time I was 16 until then. And then, I had children. And so got away from lifting and bodybuilding and all that sort of thing for quite a while. And then my youngest daughter, who is 19 now, she was 2. And I was carrying her. It was the end of the day, and I was carrying her up the stairs, for bedtime. And when I got to the top of the stairs, and you know the story,
Yeah.
told it to you 100 times. When I got to the top of the stairs, I was out of breath. I was exhausted, and it was like one flight of stairs. It was just a 2-story house.
And you're talking about that, and you're kind of like smiling through it, like how silly it was that you were exhausted. But how disheartening and like crushing was it to feel like I can't even carry my daughter upstairs without?
Yeah, it was crushing, and I think that's what started my journey into getting back to a place where I felt good about myself. I felt I wanted to be in good shape for them, and I didn't want to spend their childhood years like lagging behind, not able to play with them on the playground or throw football or go play baseball or kickball or whatever. And so I just took it upon myself that I was like going to start getting in shape.
So at that point, you had 4 young ones at home,
Mm-hmm.
and you were working like what, 70 hours a week?
Yeah, it was around 60 or 70 hours.
So when you hit that realization that you're like, okay, I can't live like this anymore. I've got to get in better shape. I've got 4 kids.
Yes.
I work 70 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How am I doing this?
Yeah.
Where am I finding the time?
Yeah.
So, like, what did you do? Like, what thought process did you have, and how did you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is how I'm structuring my day so I can prioritize being healthy?
Right. So one of the things that we had an attic, and so I just went to a garage sale, found some old dumbbells, couple of barbells, and just really when I would get off in the evenings, I would prioritize and make sure that I had time with my kids because I hadn't seen them all day. And so and then as soon as they would go to bed, I would go to the attic and I would spend it wasn't long because frankly I was out of shape, so it would be 30 or 45 minutes going up in there and doing whatever I could do, if it was dumbbell curls or shoulder press or whatever.
Going from nothing to 2-hour workouts, you wouldn't have lasted very long.
No.
So,
So
kind of probably a blessing that you
right.
only had 30 to 45 minutes upstairs.
Right. So that's kind of how it started for me, is just adding home workouts best as I could. And I did that for 3 or 4 years, and until I found that it wasn't going to work anymore. To you can only bless you if you can do home workouts, and you can do I can't. I just can't.
Well, there's
Because there's equipment, but there's also the people that do home workouts are some of the most impressive people to me, because there's so much at home that lures you.
too many distractions.
Yeah, there's too many distractions. There's your children.
Your ADHD brain, you would be in the middle of a set and be like, hey, I need to go over here and rearrange this.
Yeah, I probably would.
Yeah, it's squirrel.
Yeah, squirrel. So I knew that I needed a gym because, there's a pantry over here, there's television here, there's, all these distractions. And so I needed to get in a gym. So I went and joined a local gym here in town. And
what was the first gym you joined?
ATC, which stands for around the clock. It was 24 hours, which for me worked because at that point I started I changed my schedule. So instead of going late at night, after I got off work, I would go early in the morning. So
how hard was that switch?
that was really hard. Yeah. But I mean, I knew that it was the only way that it was going to get done, because I needed to prioritize that time with my kids, and make sure that they didn't feel like they didn't grow up with a father who just prioritized working out. And so I went in the mornings, and it was like 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock or whatever. And I did that for so long. And then, I was probably a member of that gym for about 5 years, and then, unfortunately got a divorce. And so at that point, that's kind of when life.
He doesn't mean unfortunately.
I don't. Well, I mean, unfortunately for my children, but not unfortunately because that's you. But at that point in time, I really went down some dark roads, and as some of the people can relate, when you're used to chaos, and you're used to, and I say chaos, when you're used to a house full of people or children or activity, and when you have 5 children at that point, my life had been chaotic in a way that I probably didn't appreciate the noise of my children. But when you don't have that noise, silence is deafening, and it will wreck you if you let it. And I let it. So I went down some dark roads, started drinking really heavily, started dating.
Were you just lonely?
Yeah, for sure. Because there's nothing.
Were you still spending time in the gym?
Yeah, I was. I was still going just as much. Actually, I never stopped. But I had this added, I've got to get in, I would go after work, and then I was, at that point dating a girl who was an alcoholic. And I felt that in order to hang out with her, I needed to do this. I needed to drink to be on that level.
Yeah.
It's difficult to hang out with somebody who is an alcoholic or whatever if you're not on that same level, because what are we going to, if you're drunk and I'm not, I'm going to sit here and watch you be drunk, and this is stupid.
Yeah.
So I would drink, every single night. And it got to the point where I knew that I needed to make a change.
Was she the kind that would be like, aren't you going to have a drink? Can I get you a drink?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because I've been there.
Yeah. So I knew that there needed to be a change. And so I knew either I was going to go, it frankly got to the point where I knew I was going to go to rehab, or I was going to make a change in my life. And the change in my life was I met a trainer in town. His name is Chris Quaddy, and he ran a show back then called the Battle on the Bluff, which was at the casinos in Tunica. And I went to see him mainly more. He was he was a competition, but he was also a lifestyle coach. And a lifestyle coach, what all that means is lifestyle people are people who they want to get in better shape, but they have no desire to compete. And
So you mean normal people?
Yeah, like not weirdos. We're weirdos. So I went to him more on the lifestyle side because I was like, I want to get in better shape. Right? Can you write me a diet? I'll pay you to write me a diet. Now I'll follow it. And he was like, well, you have a good structure. So have you ever thought about bodybuilding? I was like, no, I haven't. But I would like to think about it because I remembered back to to my youth, to the magazines of the Ronnie Coleman's and the Lee Priests.
You talked about like your experience, but you haven't talked about what your body was going through. So like you said, you were realized you needed to make a change with your daughter when she was 2.
Yeah.
How much of a change did you make? But so like
I made a lot.
So were you? You said you had a hard time breathing, right?
Yeah.
Did you'd gotten overweight?
Yeah. So I probably was 230. I'm 5'11". My license says 6 foot, so I guess I'm 6 foot.
Every guy.
Okay, I'm 5'11". So I was 5'11", 230, not a good 230. And lost
a sedentary 230.
Yeah, and I ended up losing through what little I knew. I tried to research as best I could, and so my mode of losing weight was on the dietary side was intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. So I would eat my first meal of the day at 11 o'clock and my last meal of the day at like 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And it worked to take off weight. I lost probably 40 pounds within that, 6, 7, 8 year window right there. And got in a lot better shape, but it wasn't a great muscle building,
Yeah, not great. Yeah, not a good strategy.
It wasn't a good strategy for building muscle.
Yeah.
And so I switched, and when I met Chris, he's like, okay, we're going to start eating, 6 times a day. And I thought, I'm going to get fat. This is weird. And so we started doing that. And when it came to the competition, he told me, he's like, there's this new category called classic. You should look at it. And I had no idea. I didn't know who Chris Bumstead was. I didn't know what classic physique was. All I knew was the bodybuilding of my youth, which was
classic.
Lee Priest. It was classic now, but it was open back then.
Right, but Arnold.
Yeah, but it was that body structure. And so when I looked at it and I looked at Chris Bumstead, I was like, that's the body. I have, there's nothing against the Nick Walkers and Samson Dowdos of the world, but I have no desire to be 300 pounds at any point. It's just, I don't. And so when I looked at that, I was like, that's what I can't look like that, but that's the goal. That's more realistic to me. And so I started there. And so, once I got that bug, and the bug of competing and the bug of having a purpose of waking up every day and saying, okay, I'm chasing something. I'm chasing an overall. I'm chasing a pro card. I'm chasing, being the best me that I can be. It changed my outlook on things and changed the way that I approached. It changed the way I approached the gym, and it changed the way I approached eating. I went from drinking 4 to 5 shots a night to I would go to 2 to 3 shots on the weekend. I would go from eating, I'm not a sushi fan, but I would eat, Olive Garden or something on a leg day because I need this. This is, this is extra carbs and calories. And I took that from doing that, 4 or 5 nights a week till I would have that once a weekend. So it wasn't about eliminating, it was more moderation. Now moderation has turned to more elimination as I've seen that I feel better, not drinking. It's nothing against it. It's just it was the way that it made me feel. It made me feel lethargic and the next day
didn't want to do anything.
Well, yeah, I would be more tired or whatever. And right about that time where I did, got ready for my second or third season of bodybuilding is when I met you.
Yeah. So it made you want to. It gave you something to chase, like
Yes.
chase diet, chase a better diet, chase a better physique. But I think it also helped you in the rest of your life. You started chasing happiness, like I want to chase down a better position in my career life. I want to chase a better position
that's
in
a good
my
point.
personal life.
Yeah, it not only so bodybuilding did a couple things for me. One, it gave me it made me a more healthy person. Some people might look at me like, well, they question the healthiness of bodybuilding, and I get it. But to me, if you saw me back then and you saw me now, I mean, it's a healthier lifestyle. It's a healthier person. But it also gave me that confidence that, I could, I wasn't stuck in a dead end career and I wasn't, I deserved a spouse that, our goals aligned, our
Like
our paths, our desires for our children and and each other and our careers and where we wanted to go in our lives. I deserved that, and I didn't think for a long time that I did deserve that. So yeah, and then like I said, I competed for a couple of years, and then you happened. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your journey. Okay, so we've talked about my journey. So and we brought up to the point where I met you. Now you tell your part.
Okay. Like where?
Like how you started and how you started getting into bodybuilding, your dance background and all that led to this point.
Yeah, I danced. I was a chunky kid. I was a chunky kid, like 14, 160 pounds at 5'4". I'm 5'6" now, but when I was 14, I was 5'4" and I was 160 pounds. And I got made fun of for being fat, and I got tired of being fat, and I wanted to lose weight. And I learned somehow, I don't even remember where I learned it from, when I was a teenager, that food had calories in it, and calories is what made you fat. That's what I learned. That's not true, but that's what I learned. So then I started seriously restricting my food and lost a ton of weight.
So in that restriction, was there eating disorders involved?
Oh yeah. So I at first was just heavily restricting. I had never heard of bulimia, and then I heard of bulimia, and I'm like, hey, that sounds like a good idea, because any teenage kid has great reasoning and decision-making abilities. So I'm like, that sounds like a good idea. So I heavily restricted, and I dabbled in bulimia, and I struggled with that for several years. So from when I was 14 to when I was about 18, and off and on through my adulthood, because it's not like that kind of thought process leaves your head.
No.
But heavily struggled with it from when I was 14 until I was 16, 17. And then I got pregnant with my oldest son when I was 17. And then I had to eat, which I didn't mind. I really enjoy eating. And I didn't mind putting on weight because I was putting on weight for the baby. And so when I had him, I had started taking dance classes, some ballet, to try and like be healthy and move. And I love to dance. So I'm like, let me do some dance classes. There was a local dance studio, and I went and took some. And I fell in love with that. And I started dancing all the time, and taking more classes and more classes. And then I started teaching dance. And then I had gotten married. I was 18, got married, had a second kid, and I was teaching dance. And that marriage fell apart. But you heard me, I got married when I was 18. So marriages that start when you're super young,
They have struggles.
they can have struggles that are very hard to overcome if you're not emotionally mature, and I was not. So after that, I was in another relationship, and that relationship was more on the abusive side. And at that point, at the end of that, I decided I did not want to look like a victim, because I was slim. I was 5'6" and 120 pounds, so it's pretty slim and easy target. So after that, I didn't want to look like someone that could just throw around if you wanted to. So I wanted to start getting stronger. So I went to the gym and started lifting weights. And I had zero clue what I was doing. I picked up a dumbbell and I'm like, I know how to do this. And I would do dumbbell curls and watch myself in the mirror do dumbbell curls. I'm like, I know how to do that. I didn't know a whole lot.
That's why you're so jacked in the arms.
Yeah.
Mm.
All those dumbbell curls.
Yeah.
I was just going to be like one giant bicep.
They're just sitting here.
But I did some research over the years and learned from people and figured out how to lift. And I got pretty yoked. I was pretty yoked there for a little while. Pretty strong. I did a lot of deadlifting and squatting and enjoyed the crap out of getting stronger and lifting heavier. And then I had gotten into my marriage with my late husband. And that marriage was very chaotic from the alcoholic standpoint. He wasn't an alcoholic when we got married, or at least I didn't know he was one. And then the longer we were together, especially after my youngest was born, he really went deep diving into the alcoholism. And like you said, when you're with someone and they drink every night,
you feel like you got to keep up.
And if I didn't drink with him, I was in trouble.
Yeah, they drag you with them.
Mm-hmm. So, started drinking every night, and it ultimately took his life, the drinking. He got in a bad car wreck because he was driving like an idiot while drinking a beer. And
well, I mean, it wasn't that he was drinking a beer. I mean, he had several that night and chose to.
he had been drinking all day.
Right.
So he had grilled and had been drinking all day and
died trying to go get some more.
Yep. So. Yeah.
Okay, so that leads us to.
Well, after he passed, I needed, like you said, I needed something to chase. So I didn't want to sit there and keep drinking every night. I had kids to take care of. I didn't want to be an alcoholic mom that just didn't do anything but sit on her butt and drink all night long. That's gross. To me, that's gross. Mm-hmm. I wanted something to look forward to be excited about that was going to happen in the future. I wanted to feel pretty. To be honest with you, to be very vainly honest, I wanted to feel good about myself. And so I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition. And when my late husband was alive, I wouldn't have been allowed to do a bodybuilding competition because it would have been too showy.
No, he's a controller.
Oh, very much so. Insecure people are controlling. Mm-hmm. And he was very insecure, which is probably another reason why he drank so much. So he wouldn't have let me do a bodybuilding competition. But after he passed, I didn't have him tell me I couldn't do whatever I wanted to. And so I'm like, I'm going to compete in a show. And that'll give me something to think about besides the situation I was in. And, you know, my being alone is difficult, even if the person you are with is a horrible person. It's hard to deal with death.
I can only imagine.
So, um, and everything that went along with it, he left me a pile of crap that I've had to deal with, paid for.
We have had to.
Yeah, you've taken on that.
Well, I gladly. I mean, I wish the situation wasn't what he left you, but I think it's important that they know, you know, what, how, how kind of destitute things were because he was a business owner. You had 4 children at this time. I mean, you still have, you know, you have 4 children, and basically just left with nothing.
Nothing, less than nothing,
Yeah,
like
nothing.
the opposite of nothing. I had to pay
Yeah,
for everything.
yeah.
Like there was no life insurance. There was just debts that had to be paid, and
Yeah. So I think the important part of that is just you when things bad happen in your life, and I understand because I was at the same place. I think our lives kind of parallel, and some of those, you know, some of these the viewers' lives may parallel too. That when you come to a bad spot in your life, things, and I don't just mean, you know, I mean like a life changing spot, divorce, death of a spouse or child, God forbid, loss of a job, you know, death of a parent. We all have choices in our. You come to a place where you have a choice.
yeah, you're at a crossroads. Really,
Yeah.
like a crossroads gets like shoved in your face. Like you can either continue being miserable, or you can fork off and be like, let me figure out let me do this thing that is going to be challenging but also rewarding.
Right.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted something that was going to be challenging and rewarding. And so I decided on a show I wanted to do a Nashville Fit Show, which I did not do that year, but I loved the idea of doing an all girls show. And I've had there was a couple that I knew, and they owned a gym, and they had both competed once before. And I'm like, well, let me get them to help me compete. And so they got me started. They had been out of the industry for a long time, so they weren't really in tune with what bikini needed to be, because I wanted to compete in bikini. Back when they competed, bikini was completely different than what it had turned into. So realizing that, moved to Fit Body and got them involved, and then Jennifer Dory.
Well, you left out the part where we met.
I did.
So let's back up just a
Sorry,
couple
I'm
months.
thinking my bodybuilding stuff.
I know, but I mean, so I know when we met.
Yeah.
So you had these two coaches who were.
Just started with those two, and I was wanting to pick a show, and you actually helped me pick a show.
I did. So let's just talk briefly about how we met.
Just briefly.
Just briefly. So how do we meet?
Well, am I deciding I wanted to do a show? I started looking up people on Instagram who were competing.
You stalked me.
I did. I found you on Instagram.
I'm glad you did.
You actually showed up. I wasn't. I was just actually looking through Instagram stories, and the story square came up where it was like suggested follows, and it will give you like 3 bubbles, and you were one of the bubbles.
Yeah, I know.
And I saw you, and it was a competing picture. You were in your shorts, your pink shorts. I think,
Shorts.
yeah, I think you were in your pink shorts in that
I
picture.
think so.
And I'm like, oh, he competes. And so I looked at your page, and you had kids, and I thought you were married.
Yeah. So
I followed you and wouldn't have said anything. I just wanted to watch.
yeah. So she followed me, and and back then I mean, I still don't have like a ton of followers or whatever. Like back then I really didn't. And so when she followed me, I was like, oh, she's hot. And then I got to flipping through her page and saw your story and kind of the loss of your husband at that time. You know, a house full of kids, and just a few months before that, I had lost a close friend of mine who was a dear, good friend. And he had 3 children and had, you know, left the wife behind. And so when I saw your story, it turned from an attraction from a visual standpoint to just my heart was broken for you. And, you know, they might not believe this, but you know the truth. And the truth was that I just shot you a message, and it wasn't flirtatious in any way. It wasn't trying to, you know, hook up or anything like that. It was just like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you're going through. I have a friend that's been through this. I don't really know why you followed me, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry for what you're going through.
And that's where you made your mistake. You were nice to me.
Yeah, I know.
And now you're stuck with me.
I don't think it was a mistake. So yeah, and you, I, you know, didn't expect to hear much back from you, and
then I wouldn't shut up.
then you wouldn't shut up. It was great.
Yeah, they're like, seriously,
Yeah,
you would try and end the conversation.
I was trying.
You'd be like, okay, and
have a good night.
day.
Have a good night.
And I'd be like, okay, one more question though.
Yeah.
And I would not shut up.
Yeah. So one of the things, once we got together, I found, you know, once we started talking, I found out quickly that you had, you know, desires to compete. And I told you that back then. I said you have, and this was not a flirt. You know, I was not had not been a bodybuilder for long at that point in time, but I had been around long enough to know potential and what you could be. And I told you right out of the gate that you had pro potential. And
you said I had good bikini legs.
Yeah, it's true. Here you are.
Maybe that was you flirting.
Maybe it was, but it was true too. I knew I wasn't, you know, like it wasn't like I was going to tell you had great bikini legs and then you get on stage and you sucked. So you were, you know, we shifted you away from, you know, it's no offense to your previous coach, but I saw that you had such great potential that you needed to be with someone who was going to utilize that potential, and so. I didn't know Fit Body Fusion or anything.
Yeah.
That whole, but you.
I had been stalking Fit Body Fusion.
Yeah, and so
because it was very like, it's one of the larger teams, probably the largest team to be honest, especially for bikini, and the owner Jamie, Day Bernard, her and her husband just like. The way they presented their athletes, the way they presented themselves was just so welcoming.
It's a family.
Yeah. And it made me feel like as an older competitor that I would be like treated well.
Mm-hmm.
And they obviously knew the muscularity requirements, which is where I feel like my previous coaches weren't like on par with, because bikini back in the day was not very muscular. Now it is super muscular.
Well, if you think Fit Model,
Yeah.
the now Fit Model, and we'll get into that at some point, but the now Fit Model was the then bikini, so it's
actually enjoyed some of the new Fit Model competitions I've seen. The girls are.
Yeah, they look great.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
There's, and like I said, we'll get into that because I think a lot of people want to know, you know, bikini girls' opinions or whatever. So, you know, that I don't know if we need to go into all your shows that, you know, happened after that, but you progressed really quickly. And from the beginning of your competition career to you won your pro card. So you never competed. I know your first show, it was San Antonio Pro. It was a pro am.
It was not.
Oh, it was pro for some.
No, it was San Antonio Classic, no pros.
Even the classic guys weren't pros?
No, there were no pros there. It was the San Antonio Classic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was a pro am. Well, I
No,
was
and
focused on it.
it was like a fun for me. It was a fun show because they had the men in the morning and the women in the afternoon.
Yeah, you were all
Remember?
alone. I do remember.
And it was prejudging. They'd go through all the classes in the prejudging, and right after they were done with all the classes with prejudging, right into finals. There was no like go back to your hotel room
Yeah.
and wait. So it was. I did a lot of like get on stage, run around, get back on stage, get on stage, run around. It was fun.
Yeah. So, like I said, first show you win your true novice class, you win novice, you win masters, you win open in your class, and
Yeah.
then you go on to the overall and finish second. So I told you, and I know you remember this, but when the night started,
What did I say to you when the night started? When I got backstage?
when you got backstage, you shot me a text and you said, I hope, I don't remember the exact wording. I just know that you told me, I hope you didn't get your hopes up too high because I'm not beating these girls back here.
Yeah.
They look too good.
Yeah. You
And
may have said it, like word for word that sounded exactly.
it was exactly, I hope you didn't, I know you have a lot of,
I was so.
I know you have a lot of faith and hope in me and the way that this is going to go.
So scared of disappointing you. Like I was so scared of disappointing.
And so you should send me that text, and I sent you back. What I send you back?
I don't remember what you sent me back because I was like in shock.
So I remember, but you don't.
No.
Okay. I sent you back, and I said you are not going to believe what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, that is what you said.
Yeah, I said something that you can't fathom is going to happen tonight, and it did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you beat everybody save one girl who, I don't know if she went on to get her pro card or not, but
Not. I mean, I don't.
it doesn't matter. It's just there's one girl out of 200 that beat you on your very first show, and so a few shows beyond, but
Well, not only that, but Sandy Williamson,
yeah,
the
who's the head Olympia judge?
head Olympia, a female judge for the women, asked me to go to nationals to compete for my pro card. Which
Your second show.
Yeah, for my second show. She's like, I want you to come to nationals. And my first thought was like, I don't want to be in prep for another 6 weeks.
So I had to talk her off the ledge on that, and she went to that show.
I won my class, but I did not win the overall.
It was an overall show where you had to win the overall to get your pro card. So just cut through some of it, because from your first show, which was San Antonio Classic, to your pro card, the day you won your pro card, what was that span of time?
San Antonio Classic was October 19th of 2021. And I won my pro card September 1st or 2nd. September 1st or 2nd, 2022.
So that's less than a year. That's unheard of. Like, not many people win their go from not competing and doing anything to winning, to competing their first time, to winning their pro card within a 1 year time frame is unbelievable.
But I also had been lifting weights since.
I understand, but
I know what you're saying, but I also don't want it to sound like that's like.
no, it's not. I mean, there had to be a base.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it was
It's pretty.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
Pretty.
So you're pro and went on to win. How many pro shows have you won in the Masters category?
3.
3. So that brings us to there's the Olympia, which is the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. There's the Arnold Classic that's earlier in the year, but then there's the Olympia at the end of the year, and everybody wants to be Mr. Olympia in bodybuilding, Miss Olympia in bikini, and then there's another Olympia that's for 40 and over, and that's Masters Olympia. So
in Tokyo. Yeah.
So Masters Olympia is every 2 years. 2 years ago, it was in Romania.
Well, they just started it back.
Yes, they
2
did.
years
It was
ago, and they're doing it from what they said at this point,
every 2 years.
every other year.
So 2 years ago was Romania. This year is,
23, yeah,
and this year is 2025, and it's in Tokyo.
Tokyo. Which when they first announced Masters Olympia, I was a pro, but I had not even done a show yet, so there's no way I was going to be able to go to Masters Olympia then. But you were like, oh, you need to go next time they have one. You need to go. And I'm like, I'm not going to Romania. But that's like, I do not want to try and make that trip. So when they announced it was in Tokyo, I was like,
that's further than Romania.
It's not how far it is, it's where it is.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, if it's a matter of hours on a plane, that's way more hours.
No, it was a matter of like
the culture,
location. Yeah, Romania, I'm sure, is beautiful and amazing, but it's not a very touristy spot. So Tokyo is. So it is very American friendly.
So say all that to say that you've qualified. And so here in, this is April, so here in 4 months, we're headed to Tokyo. So, and the winner of that gets to go to
the last Masters Olympia, the winner also got invited to compete at Olympia in Vegas. So if they're still doing that, the winner.
Pretty sure they are. So a big year, no big deal, just, And then as far as on the table for me this year, and then we'll get into some of the questions, but I have gone for my pro card 4 times. I have finished second twice. And so if you don't know about pro cards, when you compete, in order to win a pro card, you have to win. It's first or nothing. And I have finished second twice. So, come back, reloaded, have had the same coach for a couple years now, Dom Kuza with Camp Jansen, and I love, he is awesome. So good, so good. He is the main formulator for Raw and Revive. He is he's like a baby Yoda.
I was going to say, he's like a bodybuilding savant.
Yeah, he is. And no offense to Neil Yoda Hill, but, Dom is like the baby Yoda to me. He's the new up and coming brainiac and I'm very appreciative to be under him. And so we come back this year and, give it another shot. So I feel better about this year. Okay. So you want to answer a couple of these questions? What questions we got?
Okay, so one of the questions we got was relationships, dating. Me trying to read your handwriting. Dating in and out of the sport. Yeah. So I guess they want.
They want to know
advice on relationships.
Well, if you compete, what's the difficulties if you're a competitor and you date another competitor or married to another competitor? And also if I choose to compete and you and my spouse, girlfriend, whatever, are not a competitor. Okay. So I think we can start from if we're both competitors, because that's kind of
that's where our experience lies.
That's where our experience lies currently.
My only experience.
So to me, we get this question all the time.
I get asked regularly, especially when we're in prep.
Which we are.
Yeah, especially when we're in prep, is how do we get along?
How do we do it? How do we
get along? Like they're expecting us to be coming to blows all the time. Which we do, we do have.
Oh, for sure.
We've been bickering a little bit more here recently, just because.
Well, we tried to do this podcast 3-4 days ago, and
it did not work.
It did not work. Someday that podcast may make the blooper reel.
So, the bickering, it's just but we've both been like, okay, we're both tired. We're both getting more tired and a little more hungry, and our patience is not what it should be. So being kind of self-aware of that, I feel like we do. I think we're doing a pretty good job, because neither one of us are in the spot of absolute dead, you know?
Yeah. Yes. So I think it makes it a lot easier for us to both be I think it's easier for two people to both be in prep than not,
Yeah, because the
or
bickering,
to both be in bodybuilding.
because the bickering would be all like huge blowout fights. If like for example, if you came home and I snapped at you and was like just like not acting like my normal self. And it was not because of anything you did, it was just because I was like hungry from being in prep and you didn't understand what that felt like or what prep, like how um, getting super hungry and tired can make your, like, make you react differently. If you didn't understand that, it could turn into like a full blown fight instead of baby.
Calm down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I would say.
And he doesn't ever tell me to calm down. He says, "Baby, this is what happened last time." It's like, "Are you mad at me?" And that was like it hit me. It was, oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm not mad.
So I think one of the advice that I, several younger competitors or people that want to compete have come up to me and they said, they've asked for relationship advice or whatever, and one of the first things that I say is, you have to, if bodybuilding is going to be a passion that you want to chase for the rest of your life, you need to make sure that whoever you date, marry, you even think about, being a part of your life, either respects that part or understands or is a part of that life theirself.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you don't, if I get with you and you're like, I don't like bodybuilding, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do it one way or the other.
I'm gonna do it.
So, and then it becomes a major issue.
No.
It becomes an issue down the road because
That's where
I've got to work out 2 hours today.
Well, that's the funny.
Why are you not?
That's kind of funny though. Like if you think about it, people talk about you a good partner when you're looking at dating for marriage. A good partner is someone who your goals and morals and lives align with each other. And a lot of times people don't talk about fitness lifestyle with that. But if your fitness lifestyle does not also align with each other, that's gonna cause huge rifts between you and your partner.
For sure.
So,
Yeah. So that's just one of the things that I try to tell new competitors or people who are getting into the lifestyle is like, you need to make sure that your spouses or your girlfriends or whatever, their goals align with yours. And another thing is you get some people who later in life come to bodybuilding and their spouse, like, let's just say, we are married for 5 years. You're not a bodybuilder, and then I all of a sudden decide like, I'd like to do this. If she's on board, it makes it a little easier, but she's not going to understand some of the things that you're going through, but that doesn't give you the license to, if I come home and I'm, tired on 2,200 calories and 60 minutes of cardio a day and all these things, and I come home and I bite your head off. She didn't sign up for this. I signed up for this. This is, something that I chose to do. It's not something she chose to do. And so I'm bringing all of this drama and this, turmoil to you when I chose this. So if you are in that spot where you choose bodybuilding, like if you want to make bodybuilding really miserable, bring it home in a negative manner.
yeah.
So.
Well, that'd go for anything in life. If you bring home like junk baggage from work and you're pissed off about work and you bite your wife's head off, it's the same concept. People just don't realize. Like it's hard to understand that all those things are very similar to each other.
Yeah. My foot's itching. So. Yeah. So. Scratching it for a second. Yeah. So that's one thing, and then we'll just handle one more of these. I think post-contest mentality is kind of funny, just because of how I've handled it in the past. and some of the mistakes that I've made. So, one of the things that you learn throughout prep is that you're really hungry, and you can go down some rabbit holes of, like last, I don't know if it's last year.
Last year, you bought so many damn cookies. That's probably our freezer was full.
I think I spent $200 on cookies, and what happened is like you're on Instagram and you do a little search
You were
or
like,
you.
and I had been like, I don't like Buckeye brownies. To me, they're dry. And you're like, okay, but I'm going to get a box. So which one do you want? I don't.
I don't want any of
I
them.
don't want one.
I want crumble. Yeah.
But look at this box. I'm like, oh,
Okay, whatever. Just in it. Shut up. So, yeah. So one of the things is like, if you have a coach, listen to your coach because they're going to guide you through like a rebound phase after a show.
Post contest.
Post show is rough.
And post contest mentality, the best thing you can do is continue like you are still on prep. Continue with that.
Have a good meal.
Have a good meal after your show, and probably like a nice breakfast or brunch or like whatever meal. Like if you want to have a meal with a family member or a friend that didn't get to have one with you after your show, you want like that special person, one more, and then you're done. Then you're back in prep. You follow your coaches, what your coach says to do without thinking about it because your coach told you to do it. You are still in prep. Because what happens after that, and I'm not preaching like I'm on a soapbox, I'm telling you because I did the exact opposite and put on way too much body fat and was super uncomfortable in my own skin. But what happens if you don't do that and you just kind of like eat what you want to? Body fat packs on very
Pretty quickly.
because you're like this. Your body's like this dried up sponge.
Raisin.
This little dried up sponge, and it's going to soak up anything it can, and ask for more. Even if you've had plenty, you're gonna think, "Oh, I'm still hungry." Yeah. No, you're not. You just think you are.
Yeah. So that's us. That's I feel like that's a good intro into the world of us. And so a couple of one of our we really have one major sponsor right now, and that's OMG. So shout out OMG.
OMG makes the most amazing, beautiful bikinis. I cannot say enough about how gorgeous and comfortable those stupid bikinis are. I love them so much. And then she made him.
They also do classic trunks.
He had velvet. He had velvet. They were so pretty on stage. Anyway,
so
okay.
Code April, code Tommy on OMG bikinis to save some money. And she is such a sweetheart. She will work with you to nail the look. I mean, these are hand jeweled. These are top of the line. She is such a sweetheart too.
Yeah.
So, but hey, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for giving us your time. You guys have been
We're
so
just
good.
gonna say bye.
Bye. Well, that was rude.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude.
So let's see.